sacrificed by one man. The sacrifice of one to obtain forgiveness for all.
What's your number one wish?
Having a mom and dad.
In 2008, 123,000 children across the nation were seeking adoption. In Missouri, there were 3,711 that had a goal of adoption. However, foster care for 2008 nationwide was 463,000 children, and Missouri had 14,528 children in need of foster homes.
Of those who entered foster care, only 55,000 were adopted. In Missouri, 1,117 children were adopted. That leaves over 400,000 children in need of a home.
I became an adoptive parent because I had a very strong desire to have another child.
I knew that I was meant to adopt, and I don't know why, but you know, at that point in time, you don't know why, you figure it out later, and we figured it out, but we tried to have kids naturally, and it didn't work.
We tried naturally, and then we went to Kansas. It was in Kansas, and did a bunch of fertility stuff.
I was born in 1963. Yeah, I'm dating myself a little bit. But that was an incredible sacrifice. Adoption wasn't as contemporary as it is today.
At the time, you know, you're focused on all of the effort and all of the obstacles that may be put in your path.
It's not easy emotionally. It challenges yourself, and it really makes you, in our cases, made us a lot stronger.
And I think that one thing is that people struggle with when they adopt is that they're not prepared. And so I think it's really important that they talk to families that have been down that road, and so they can hear all the possible scenarios of what to expect.
The Adoption Resource Foundation, I think, is a critically important organization because it really bridges the faith community with the mission of adopting. Not only assist families in being able to meet their dream of becoming parents, but really assist children in their dream of finding families.
We were able to talk to people that have gone down the different paths and have speakers come in and educate us on those so we could make the decision that was right for us.
When I adopted my children, I didn't have access to anything like the Adoption Resource Foundation. With Jenna and with Emma, I was okay financially. With Ryan, it was more of a struggle, and I really could have used something like that.
Going through the whole process and all of a sudden being rewarded with this child, it is just such a true blessing when you're able to just finally sit there and breathe a sigh of relief and hold that child in your arms.
We're the ones that feel blessed by having him. He's changed our lives just as much as we are impacting his.
People always say to me, I could never be you. I could never adopt 19 kids. And it's not necessary for anybody to adopt 19 kids. If only one family would adopt one child, then there wouldn't need to be families like mine.
If a family would just consider the option, the blessings that they receive are far more than the blessings that they give to the child. So if just one family would step up to bring a child home and give them a loving family, it would make a world of difference.
It only takes one, just one, to make a huge difference in this world.
Only one person could adopt one child.
It only takes one family.
Just one.
If each of the 1,200 churches in the Kansas City area were to have just one couple, just one family, adopt just one child, what a difference one would make.
Will you be the one?
The Adoption Resource Foundation was started in 2003. My wife was adopted. She was abandoned as a baby in 1948. Was adopted 2 years later from an orphanage in St. Joe, Missouri, Norwich Children's Home. When I retired, when we got married, we were married for 46 years. When I retired, I said, we'll do something special for children. Our goal is to go back to St. Joe's at Children's Home and volunteer. But God does it a different way. We started this foundation in 2003. Since that time, we've helped over 110 families. We've given away over $120,000 as far as grants, scholarships, medical supplies, medical assistance. The purpose of the Adoption Resource Foundation is very simple. You sit down with Kendra or I or somebody from our board, we'll help you find agencies, help make the decision as far as you want to go domestic, international, foster care, or maybe we'll just put you in contact with the resources that will help you in the adoption process. Because it's a long journey, and as we said a while ago, if just one person in here adopts one child, that child has a forever family. We're going to cover also today international adoptions and foster care adoptions. But now Kendra Hurston is going to share her story.
Hi, my name's Kendra, and my husband and I met when we were in high school and stayed together, planned together, waited till we were out of college before we got married, did the responsible thing, we started saving money so we could get a house. Never had the goal of adopting initially. We just had always talked about, yeah, we're going to have a big family. My husband has 4 in his family, and I've got a sister, and you know, we're in the same situation that most of you are in right now with, okay, well, we tried for a year, like the lady said this morning. You know, we've all been through that initial part of our journey. You know, you try for a year, you go to your doctor says, all right, we'll send you to us, but go to your OBGYN, they'll do some testing. You know, after another year goes by, okay, that didn't work, and the Clomid didn't work, we'll send you to a specialist. And how many of you already been down that road already? You've been to the specialist and you're, okay, we'll do the inseminations. But my husband and I didn't really have a reason why we weren't conceiving, and so that was a pretty frustrating situation for us because everybody around us was, and you know, what's the problem? Why isn't this working? This isn't the plan. I'm a teacher and I lived my day every day by a very strict, rigid plan, and so it wasn't working and it was so frustrating. And you know, my husband's a firefighter and I'm a teacher. We don't make a lot of money, and most insurance companies don't pay for your infertility, which is frustrating. So now you're newlyweds, you're young, you don't have a savings. What do? You finance all of these procedures. And we did. We did 8 inseminations. We did an IVF. And eventually, after about 5 years, we came to a point in our lives where we needed to just reflect and decide, what is the goal here? You know, do we want to keep trying to have our own children? You know, you could just adopt and have a child right now. And so it kind of felt like we'd exhausted all of our options. And like I said, adoption wasn't our original plan. Some people, you know, really know right away, yeah, I'm going to adopt. And my husband made peace with it very early. But it took me a lot longer to kind of make peace with that. My goal is to have children in my home. We built a large house to fill it with kids. And we were just kind of wasting time on that process and a lot of money. And so I didn't know where to start. You know, this was 2004 was when we adopted our son. About 2002 was when I decided we need to kind of move on and make this go a little faster. And so I just kind of started asking friends, well, what do you think about adopting? And then sure enough, I had a number of friends that adopted. I didn't even know about it. And I think infertility is such a private issue that people don't tend to usually talk about that with the people around them. But I think once you come to those terms and you start discussing your frustrations with your family and your friends, and you're going to kind of get some really good advice from people. You're going to get some really lousy advice from people. I have to giggle at all of the things that the ladies talked about this morning with well, maybe you should just relax, it'll happen, or, yeah, sure, that'll happen. Sometimes it doesn't. And so you have to kind of ask yourself, well, what is the purpose here? And we want to have babies. You know, if you have your own after you adopt, that's great too. But you got to kind of get to those terms on your own. You can't let somebody push you into that decision. It was the best decision we ever made. We started our home study process in the spring of 2003. We were matched with a birth mom in August of that same year. The birth mom had the baby in October, changed her mind the day she had the baby, which was super heartbreaking. And it, you know, after going through infertility, it's so frustrating. But with adoption, there aren't any guarantees either. You have to kind of build your heart up and be strong, because the child that's meant to go to your home has already been picked. You just don't know it yet. And by June of 2004, my OBGYN called and said, I've got somebody in the ER that doesn't want to keep the baby. And we just happened to have a private adoption situation. We worked with Adoption and Beyond, and they're going to talk here in just a few minutes. Great company to work with. But then with Adoption Resource Foundation, we're a free service. You don't have to be a member of our church. We're not going to try to make you be a member of our church. It's just a great place to start when you have questions and you don't know what to do and you're not sure where to go and you're not even sure if you want to adopt yet. We have members of our church that have been through every step. We chose the domestic adoption. Couldn't afford the international adoption after $50,000 worth of treatments. Didn't realize it would cost that much to go overseas. Got to go there to get the baby, right? I just had been matched locally, just here in town. And then with our daughter, in 2010, Bella was born. And we had about a week to prepare for her to come home with us. That was interesting. But you just I never expected it to happen that way, but it was now after the fact, I can look back on my journey and yeah, now it all makes sense. You know, sometimes you don't see that big picture, it's just frustrating and it can put you in a dark place. I was angry and sad and I didn't go to baby showers and, you know, after those kids come home, everything changes. I mean, now I know my children were handpicked and they were supposed to come home with me. They're my kids. And they know they're adopted, and then they know that there's a special person that God picked somebody on purpose that could carry them until they were ready to come home with us. And so we always share with our kids that they are such a blessing. And you know, that was supposed to be the plan, even though you can't see that when you're going through infertility. You don't see that as your plan. But it all comes together eventually. So you just have to be patient, you have to be strong, and I know that's really hard to do when you already have, you know, a little broken heart because things aren't working right. But hang in there, and if you have questions, please stop by the table and grab a flyer if you didn't get one yet. We can answer your questions. You can email, you can call. That's all we do. It's that simple. It's free advice, really. And I'm going to turn the microphone over now to Adoption and Beyond. They're going to talk to you a little bit about international adoption, I think. And good luck.
Hi. Kind of tall. Can everybody hear me? My name is Rachel Cruz. I'm a social worker with Adoption and Beyond. And I've been working in international and domestic adoption for over 20 years. I'm also an adoptive mother to an 8-year-old from China. So when I was working in international adoption, my husband and I decided we would also like to adopt. So we looked at all the programs and chose Guatemala, and we were in the Guatemala program for a year. Were unsuccessful in that program, and then Guatemala closed, as many of you might have remembered that time period. And while that was devastating, we still felt that pull to stay on this path. So we compiled a new dossier, which we'll talk about in a minute, we compiled a new dossier for China, and we were going to enter into the Healthy program in China, which at the time was taking about 6 to 9 months for a referral. So just as we were sending our dossier in, China announced that the referral time was going to be 12 to 18 months instead of 6 to 9 months. So after waiting a year in Guatemala, we really were sad to think about waiting another year and a half to bring home our child from China. So instead, we decided to look at the children with special needs in China. Today, you can go to international agency websites and see a list of children with special needs. You can see their pictures, you can look at their medical information, but back then there was no such thing. Every quarter, we would get a packet of children, 5 to 6 children, because we were a smaller agency. And you can see their pictures and their medical information, and then as an agency we would try to find families who were appropriate for that child's special need. And that was the first time we saw a picture of our daughter. So in June of 2006, we got our quarterly packet, decided to match with our daughter, and submitted our dossier immediately for her. She was considered special needs because she had a subdural hematoma as an infant, and we'll never know the circumstances surrounding that. Either she was dropped or rolled off of something, but I think it was a pretty significant head injury. She was hospitalized for 12 days, and but they must have done a bang-up job because she is not special needs in any way. She has a scar in her hairline, and that's about all that's left of the hematoma, fortunately. So that is, and as far as wait time in the special needs program through China, we submitted our dossier in June of 2006, and by January of 2007, we had travel approval. So it took about 6 months to go pick her up. And we celebrated her 2nd birthday while we were in China. And that was probably her most lucrative birthday because our guide said, "Oh, it's her birthday. You need to give her a present. So we must go to the pearl market." So she got pearls for her at 2 and her at 16 and her wedding day. And so I left with way too many pearls. I was trying to tell the guide, in the U.S., we don't buy pearls for 2-year-olds. But she didn't care what I said. She really thought she needed some pearls. So I know you're thinking, where do I start as far as international adoption? In your handout, 2 websites you need to remember if you're even considering international adoption would be the Department of State. They will give you an update on any country you're interested in. If there's travel advisories or if they've closed their program to adopt international adoption. Another website that is really important is the Joint Council for International Children's Services, otherwise known as JCICS. And so when you're starting an international adoption, you need to consider what country you're interested in. And then you can go to this list I've given you of countries and agencies. And if you're interested in, say, China, you can go to the China page, and there's a whole list of reputable agencies that partner with JCICS, so you know that you can trust their services. And that way you can choose a placing agency. So a placing agency is considered your agency who's actually going to give you the referral of your child and who works in that country that you're interested in. If your placing agency doesn't have a local licensed social worker in your area, then you'll need to contact a local agency who is capable of doing international home studies. So you may end up having a local home study agency and a placing agency to complete your international adoption. Once your home study is complete, then you can complete your dossier. And a dossier is a compilation of documents that the country requires for you to adopt. And each country has a different list of documents that are required. They usually include a home study, medical reports, criminal checks, sometimes references, your INS approval, but your placing agency and your home study agency can help guide you through that process. Most international adoptions cost you can expect between $30,000 and $40,000. It really varies depending on the amount of travel involved. Some countries require that you travel twice, and some is a short one-trip country. And travel is a large part of the cost of international adoption. Some popular countries to adopt from in most recent years have been Russia. I'm sure that you probably have friends who have adopted from Russia. But most recently, in January of 2013, Russia banned U.S. citizens from adopting Russian children. You may have heard in the news. And of course, that's a very sad thing to all of us in the international community. And we're hopeful that that will be overturned, but it hasn't yet. So, Bulgaria, they don't have a lot of children on their waiting list, but so it may take a few months to 1 to 2 years for a referral for you to travel. But boys and girls are available. Usually the age range is between 2 and 5 years old, and 2 trips are required in that country. China Healthy Program, 6 years ago it was 12 to 18 months for a referral. Now you can expect 6.5 years. So most people adopting from China are more interested in the waiting child list. Children can have anything from a birthmark to a severe special need. So I wouldn't rule that out if you're interested in China, to look at those children, because some of the kids, like my daughter, I know families who have adopted children with hemangiomas, raised birthmarks that they consider are special needs, but really we probably wouldn't consider that special needs here. So that's and it's a great program, and again, it's still running very fast. Like probably 6 months from the time you submit to KCIA and identify a child to the time you travel. So it's a pretty fast process. Ethiopia has also been really popular in the last few years. It depends on the agency you're working with. We've had families come home within a year from Ethiopia, and we've had families wait, sometimes up to 2.5 years. So they also require 2 trips. Boys and girls are available. They have all ages, infants, toddlers, school-age children available. Korea is also another great program. Usually the kids are 12 months and up by the time they arrive home. Most of their kids are in foster care instead of orphanages. And in the China Special Needs Program, many of those children are also in foster care instead of orphanages. In Korea, most of the children placed for adoption have minor to moderate special needs. And it's a one-trip country, and it's a very short trip. I think you're typically only there under a week, so it's a really fast trip to Korea. And the wait is about 19 to 28 months. If you're interested in a sibling group, I would look at Taiwan or the Philippines or Colombia. They are the countries best known for placing sibling groups. And we also have a table in the back if anyone's interested in picking up a brochure or have questions. I'd be happy to talk to anyone interested. And next is Joe Beck.
I have a really loud voice, so I'm not used to the microphone. So. My name is Joe Beck. I work for Midwest Foster Care and Adoption Association. We've been around right about 12 years, I think, celebrating our 12th anniversary. And our organization was started as a grassroots organization to support foster and adoptive parents in the Jackson County area. We now have chapters across the state of Missouri and have done work all across the country in improving the public child welfare system. So our roots are really around advocacy and support of parents in order to help the children that they're taking care of heal. So I know you all are here learning about the process of adoption. In foster care, it's a little bit different situation than a domestic adoption or international adoption. When you enter those processes, you've decided I'm going to adopt. When you enter a foster care program, you're entering a program where you're making a commitment to parent children. In the public child welfare system across the country, the primary goal is reunification with the birth parents. And it's a challenging process for people who have struggled with infertility or inability to have children in other ways to consider that you're going to parent someone else's kid and there's a chance that that kid could go home. So some statistics, about 60% of foster parents end up adopting the children that they foster, which means 40% of those kids end up going home. The difference about foster care is that there's a very set process that parents have to go through to reunite with their kids. So if something has occurred, those children are removed from their parents and they're placed in safe, loving, stable homes so that they can heal and be healthy while their parents kind of get their act together, if they can. There's a federal law called the Adoption Safe Families Act, which says at 15 out of the last 22 months, if the parents have not reunited, the court system has to make a decision about whether or not they're going to move towards adoption for that child or if they're going to continue to work towards reunification. So there's some pretty clear set time frames. For you as parents, it will feel like an eternity to get to that 15 months. Especially if you're interested in fostering infants. Imagine having a baby coming to your home 2 days old, 15 months later, courts are finally making a decision about, is this child going to get to stay with you, or is that child going to get to return home? One of the other things that's really hard about foster care is the court isn't making a determination about who's the better parent. If you become a foster parent, there is a guarantee that you will be a better parent than the parent who lost that child. You go through a home study process. The process to get licensed as a foster parent can take anywhere from a month to 6 months. You have to go through classes, you have to do a home study, but by the time you're done, we're going to have checked out everything about you, and we're going to know that you are a safe, stable place for kids to live. So there's no question about who's the better parent. The question is, can the birth parents provide a minimum, stable, safe environment for those kids? They look at society's standards, and can they meet the minimum? And so that's kind of a struggle for people who are looking to foster and adopt to expand their family. You can't undo it. A lot of times people will get into the foster care system and think, oh, well, if I'm a good enough parent, and if I can prove that those parents can't take care of this baby, then I'll get to keep them. What we've seen is that isn't necessarily the case, because the chasm between the parents who are taking care of the kids and the parents who are trying to get their kids back is great, and it's expected. The public child welfare system never intended to be an adoption agency. Their intent was to be a reunification agency to keep families together. However, I can tell you that there are about 1,800 kids in Jackson County alone waiting for parents. Just think about that. We've heard about domestic adoption, we've heard about international adoption. In Jackson County, which runs out to about Lexington, Missouri, Blue Springs, Oak Grove, down to about 50 Highway, there's 1,800 kids that are waiting for parents. It is not an easy path to expanding your family. However, it's an incredibly rewarding path if you can go into it with your eyes wide open. I have adopted now 4 children out of the foster care system. I have a sibling group of 3 beautiful children, a 15-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. I adopted a 13-year-old who's small when he came to us, and he's actually 14 now, just turned 14, who had been in foster care for over 2 years with no adoptive resources. So there are kids that are waiting that they know are not going to ever go home, but they're not little bitty babies. They're not little bitty black and white babies. They are 12, 13, 14-year-old kids who people say they don't deserve a family, or they don't they aren't going to make it in a family. So there are a lot of kids that are waiting for homes. And I'll tell you, from my personal experience, it's a very rewarding experience to have children who didn't have anything and believed they were disposable to find a place in your home. So I know there's lots of questions and worries, and if I foster, am I going to lose this baby? One of the things about people who have gone through a journey to expand their family, if you've healed through that process and you understand, Kendra talked about accepting that this is what it's supposed to be, and that there's a greater power and a greater plan for what's going to occur, if you can accept that healing yourself, you become an incredible resource to kids who have been told they're disposable, kids who have told they don't deserve help. I wake up every morning, actually, honestly, some mornings I wake up and I just pray that they're all still asleep. It's like 6:30 in the morning and I'm going, why did I do this again? Because I used to get to sleep till 8 or 10, but now there's little knocks at the door saying, Daddy, I'm hungry, I peed on myself. But it's super rewarding, and being able to help children heal from the scars of foster care can be an incredibly rewarding experience. You put your heart out there, you help these kids grow, and it's also an incredibly rewarding experience when kids get to go home to their natural parents. We had a 12-year-old girl that was sibling to 3 of the kids that we adopted, whose dad made some really bad choices, and she ended up back in foster care. Unfortunately, we had space. She was able to come to our home, and we worked with Dad hard for about 7 months. And I told Dad the day she came to my house, I said, look, here's the deal. I don't want to adopt your daughter, but if you don't do what you're supposed to, I'm going to. So you get to decide. You get to decide if your daughter is worth it. Now, I've been a social worker for 20 years, so I get by with that a little easier than other folks. But the incredible experience is she didn't leave us forever. She lives with her dad, but she comes at least twice a month and spends the weekend with her siblings. She calls me her white daddy. And she lives with her brown daddy. And it's, you know, when something's going wrong at home, we're still there as a support and resource to her. So if Dad is maybe making some decisions he shouldn't, instead of her having to get removed again by the system, she can call us and we can call Dad and say, look, I told you I was going to adopt her if you don't do the right thing. And he's like, oh. And he pulls it around and fixes it. But to watch birth parents who maybe have struggled their whole lives themselves, and watch them fix their lives and watch the impact that has on kids is an incredibly rewarding experience. You don't get to control the outcome. And sitting here talking to you all today, I think you realize that more than most people I usually talk to. You have a plan. You believe this is what's supposed to happen, but you don't get to control the outcome. It's the same thing with foster care and foster to adopt. You don't control the outcome. You just do the very best you can to do what you've been called to do, which is take care of kids, to help them grow and heal, and to maybe expand your family, but maybe just make a difference in a kid's life. It just takes one person making the commitment to kids. And really, Lori Ross was up on the video. She said everybody doesn't have to adopt 19 kids. That's a little bit of an old video. She's adopted 23 at this point. Her and her husband started fostering when they were 18 because a woman down the street couldn't take care of her kids when she babysat for them. And she ended up with these 4 kids in her house when she was a new mom of 1, and the mom disappeared. And that's how she became a foster parent. It wasn't something she just decided to do. She just wanted to help kids. And now, many years later, she's a mom of 23 kids. She's adopted some large sibling groups. But she tells us all the time at the agency, you don't get to decide what happens. The only thing that matters is staying committed. Just like it is with your birth kids. Just like it is with any child that you're taking care of. You make that commitment. So we are happy. We're a licensed child placing agency. We only really do work through the public child welfare system, so we don't do domestic adoptions. We can, but we don't. And we don't do international adoptions. We only do public child welfare adoptions. You heard him talk a little bit about the cost. Here is the draw to foster care. It's free. You hear that? Free. Doesn't cost you any money, but it does cost you the commitment. To become a licensed foster parent, you have to do 27 classroom hours of training. You have to go through a home study process. It's very similar to a domestic adoption or international adoption. You heard them talk about the dossier, all the documents you have to collect for international adoption. It's very similar in the States, except you don't have to work with INS to travel. There aren't travel expenses, but we're in your business a lot. We want to know, and for somebody who's struggled with infertility, one of the questions they're going to ask is, how can you resolve those grief and loss issues? Because if you don't, when you have children who come into your home through foster care, they bring all their baggage with them. And it's usually hefty trash bags full of the things that somebody could grab when the police were there to pick them up. So they have lots of grief and loss issues of their own. And they bring that with them when they come to you. So we want to make sure that we don't just help children be healthy, we want families to be healthy. And if we can help you go through that process in a healthy way, and it's meant to be that you're to adopt the kids that are living in your home, then it'll be stable. One of the saddest things we see is whenever people aren't well prepared to foster and haven't resolved their issues, and they end up adopting their kids, and then down the road they disrupt. They say, I didn't know, you didn't tell me everything, and so I can't do this anymore. So you adopt an infant, and you're so excited, and then they turn 7, and they have problems that you didn't know were going to exist. For some reason, through the public child welfare system, a lot of times people will say, I can't do this anymore, and they'll disrupt their options. We strive from day one, when you call us to say we're interested in fostering, we're going to start asking a ton of questions. Because we want you all to be prepared when you get to the end. If you say, yes, we want to adopt this child, that is not going to disrupt. Because adoption is forever. And the only thing that really seems to make a difference for kids in public child welfare is that people have made the commitment to stick by them no matter what. So we'd love to help anybody who's interested in becoming a foster parent. There's lots of interesting things going on in public child welfare in the northwest region of the state. They're actually privatizing all foster home licensing sometime in the next 6 to 9 months. So all of that will be done by private agencies as opposed to the public agencies. That is a push to do a better job of helping families be successful. So we do lots of interesting work to help people be safe. So I know there's supposed to be question and answer. Right, so if there are foster care questions, I can answer those, and then we'll go for about 5 minutes and then swap, and we'll just go in reverse order for questions. Will that work? All right, start here.
Are you only in Missouri?
We are currently only in Missouri. We're a licensed Missouri child placement agency. Yes?
I know you said if you do decide to become a foster parent and you're approved, that all happens, we're in your business a lot. Which is good, but I'm wondering, because, I wouldn't know exactly what I was getting into. I can do all the research in the world, but I'm not going to know until I'm in that position. Are there additional services if I'm feeling, if there's some issues going on, are there things to help me out?
Yes, we're a comprehensive support organization. We don't just license you and turn you loose. We actually have advocates that are on staff to answer any question that you have as a new foster parent, or you're moving through the process and you feel like they should be headed towards adoption and the team is way out in left field. We can help coach you to maybe shift that team that makes a decision for kids. If you get into the process and you crosswise with the system, we can help you get that straightened out so that those kids can remain stable. Maybe you take a kid into your home and you're like, wait a second, this one's supposed to happen like this. They're doing things that I could never even conceive of. Call us before you call the caseworker and say, I can't do this. We are a comprehensive support organization for foster and adoptive parents to keep their homes stable and to work them towards permanency for those kids, whether that's with birth families or through adoption. So yes, there's support through us. The system itself themselves, the public child welfare system, the state agency, does a horrible job. That's why we exist. That's why we're all across the state now.
I know you're a Missouri-based company, but I also had a personal friend and an experience where me and my husband live in Kansas, and she wasn't sure she was going to be able to keep her child. So I know from her foster care mother's perspective, it is possible for someone, from the Kansas side to adopt. It is a little more difficult. Can you elaborate on that process?
Well, if you live in Kansas, wherever you're licensed as a foster or adoptive parent for public child welfare children, you have to be licensed where you live. So if you reside in Kansas, you have to go through a Kansas agency. If you live in Missouri and you know of a child in Kansas that you would like to be an adoptive resource for, there's a federal law called Interstate Compact for the Placement of Children. And if you're licensed in Missouri, you can adopt from other states through ICPC. So you don't just have to stay in Jackson County, you can actually adopt across state lines. And much like the different countries have listings of children who are available for adoption, every state agency across the country has listings of children in foster care who are free for adoption. So once you're licensed, you certainly can pursue those adoptions. The local state agencies aren't real thrilled about that because they invest a lot of money. When I said it's free to you. It actually costs the state about equivalent to what it would cost you to get you licensed in homesteading. So the state is carrying that burden because you'll provide a service for children who need placement. Did that answer your question? It can be done. It's a little bit tricky, and if you run into that, let us know. We'll help you walk through it. Back there, and we'll come over here.
You talk about foster to adopt. Can parents just be adoptive resources and not do the fostering?
You can be licensed as an adoptive parent only. The struggle with being an adoptive parent only is children can't be placed in your home until you're selected as the resource for that child. So you don't know anything about the kids that are coming to you, which makes it very similar to a domestic adoption or international adoption. And once you're selected, the likelihood that those kids would leave your home is very slim. But if you talk to people who have been in the foster adoption public child welfare system, they'll encourage you to foster because most adoptions that happen through public child welfare is people who have already cared for those kids that end up saying, yes, we want to expand this. So you can do it. It just takes a lot longer. The wait is a lot longer, especially if you are interested in a brand new infant that's Caucasian. You might wait for 12 years to ever even be considered for that child, because those children simply are not available. Over here.
You keep saying Jackson County, what about the other counties? I mean, do you have to be in Jackson County?
You don't have to be in Jackson County. We license in Jackson and all the surrounding counties because we have some travel restrictions. It's really logistical more than anything else. So those are the homes that we license. But if you're in another county and you're interested, we can point you to the right people. We can say, this is who you need to contact in that county to help you get licensed. So I'm going to put my business cards out on the table when they leave. So if there's additional contact questions, you can contact me through email. I saw one other question, and then I want to be respectful of the other speakers. Don't be shy. I know I saw somebody else's hand. All right, well, I'll be hanging around a little bit. My card will be out on the table, and I'm going to turn it over to adoption beautification.
Any international questions? I answered everything. Right, but if you identify a child, like on the China waiting child list, your dossier will be directed to that particular child, right? But it's the same dossier you would do for a healthy child. You know, there's no difference in the dossier. China just gives you, each country has a dossier list.
Is your agency strictly international adoption, or do you do both?
You know, we actually don't have international programs at Adoption and Beyond. We do international home studies. We're Hague accredited. We also do international supervision because once you come home with your child, each country has a supervision requirement that we go to your house and see how you're doing and provide support if you need it. So we offer that. We also do domestic home studies and post-placement supervision, and also work with birth parents in Kansas and Missouri. We actually do domestic placements, but not international placements. Yes, and I think they have gotten back up on their feet, and we do have a couple of agencies we recommend in the office. So if you're interested, call me and I will find those agencies' names and numbers for you. But yeah, I think they are doing better, and they've gotten back on their feet. Yes, lots of children. Is that it? Okay, one more.
Just a long time ago when we researched adoption, it was cheaper at that time to go international versus domestic. Is that still the case?
You know,
because the international has gone up drastically since.
I think it has, but, and also domestically, I mean, I think people hear stories about their friends adopting and paying $50,000 for domestic adoption, but I think that's fairly rare. Domestic adoptions can range from under $10,000 to $50,000, depending on how you do it. There are many ways to complete a domestic adoption.
I think my friends ended up out of pocket $7,500.
$7,500. Yeah, that's great.
And that was just, they went through many resources. So they plugged in to agencies and lawyers, and
yes,
it was one of those emergency, someone, you know, had some last minute decision, and so all they really ended up with was legal fees.
Yes, it can be under $10,000 for sure. Yeah. Just depends on the situation and the agency that you choose to use. Everybody operates differently.
I have friends who did that too, and I don't know if they chose to do it or if it's required that if you're on a wait list and you're trying to adopt, you also be proceeding with the age units.
Some agencies will allow that and some will not. It depends on your agency. And some agencies require that you only work with that agency. And then some agencies recommend that you work with several, you're on several agencies or attorneys lists. So it really is agency specific. Okay. Thank you.
Here's the book. If you can go online, it's called Hope for Orphans. And you just go online to visit hopefororphans.org. This is the resource book. It lists in here Appafund, Buckner, all kinds of different organizations that will help you with adoption. If you're looking at international, orphan outreach programs, World Orphan, Chinese adoptions. There's a whole bunch of information here. And again, just go online to Hope for Adoptions for directory and get information for you. And it's very, very interesting to you. Also, the chart shows different types of graphs and different agencies and everything. A couple more things as far as looking for resources for adoption. And I don't have it. It's called Resources, then the number 4, Adoption. Resources, the number 4, then Adoption. They're out of Eudora, Kansas. And what she has is a whole list of different agencies or organizations that provide grants. And so you're looking for funding for those grants for adoption, they will help you on that. And another one that is of interest to you, maybe to you, is called your Adoption Coach. She has a program that's on radio, on computer, I guess it's on radio and computer. But every week she talks about different speakers that come in and talk about adoption. Kelly Ellison is the director of that, and you can reach her at your adoption, I think it's www.youradoptionfinancecoach.com. And she's also going to be on that. Again, what we do as far as our Adoption Resource Foundation, we'll meet with you. Kendra Ryers will meet with you. We will help you find agencies. We'll help you to make the decision. You want to go to domestic or international. If you're wanting to adopt biracial children or racial children, whatever you want to do, we will help you find the resources. We'll direct you to that location where you want to go. Any questions you have for Kendra about her adoption or anything? For Kendra? If not, thank you guys for coming. It's right on time at 12 o'clock. Thank you guys.